When I'm teaching my Leica workshops, one of the most popular questions I get is, Matt, how do you meter your portraits and say non-portraits if you don't shoot models the same as me? If you've seen this channel before, I normally use Leica cameras, and there are a lot of nice little meters to fit on your cold shoe to go on the different Leica cameras. And some Leica cameras, this is talking about a film, some Leica cameras also come with built-in light meters such as your M6 and MP in this example. Now the question is, which meter do I prefer of all the different options? And I've tried everything, or seemingly everything. I always go back to the GOAT, if you were, the best, the original, which is the Sekonic L-308. Now the reason this is special is it's great for metering your portraits in daylight or anything in daylight, but also you can meter flash portraits. And if you've seen some of my videos, I also shoot portraits and model photography with flash. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I meter for daylight portraits, non-portraits, and then flash portraits using the Sekonic L-308. The L-308 has been around a long time. It takes one battery on the back, and it gives you three basic modes. You've got your available light mode, you've got your wireless flash mode, and then you've got your sync cable flash mode. I used to use the sync cable flash mode with some of my older cameras, but now I just tend to use the off-camera wireless flash with my Godox triggers, things like that. So with that, let's go back to Poland where I was if you saw the last video, and I'll show you some example photos and footage of me using the L308 and then the resulting photos in some of the examples. Welcome, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So yes, let's have a look at the footage from Poland. Okay, first let's do metering portraits with available light. So getting out the Sekonic L308X, similar to older 308 models. I did have the older model as well. Now, first of all, you've got to set your ISO to your film speed, assuming you're shooting film. So I was using Ilford FP4, old cine stock, so I wanted to expose it at ISO 50. So set my ISO to 50, put it under Thomas's chin, I click the side button as it's told me I need 1/60th of a second at f4. So I dial those into my camera settings. See 1/60th f4 on the MP. On a day like this, you can see it's fairly overcast, so the light isn't changing. So basically, once you've metered once, if the model stays in the same place, then the light settings are going to be the same. It's only difficult when you've got sunshine and clouds and the sun's in and out. There you can see the resulting photo. Here's just one more example. The second thing I always kind of smile at when I see it is people often forget that the light's probably going to be the same when the kind of clouds and lighting conditions of the day are the same. So I metered that again for kind of example purposes, but as you saw, it was still 1/60th f4. Okay, now non-portraits. So this was shooting in Gdansk again. This time I wanted to meter for the boat, so in the distance, so I metered slightly down towards the ground to meter the shadows, rather than if you point it up to the sky, it's going to give you a different reading. As you can see, it's 1/60th f4 again because the light situation is still the same. I'm using a 90mm lens, which is f4 anyway, so I'm shooting the lens wide open, and then I've set my shutter speed to 1/60th. But then I'm actually using a yellow filter. So normally you'd do maybe one stop faster, but because I can't really go any slower than 1/60th, I'm going to underexpose this photo by one stop. And I know that for my film, I'm going to develop it at ISO 50 to 100 anyway. And here you can see the resulting pictures are completely fine, either one stop underexposed. Now here you can see I'm using a Leica M6. Like the MP, these have got a built-in meter, so you don't normally need a light meter for these cameras. However, my M6 Classic has had a dead meter for the last few years. Look out for my next video where I'll give you a bit more information about that. There is now a cure for these old Leica M6 cameras. Because the meter's dead, I metered it with the Sekonic light meter, again putting it slightly down, and then that allows me to get the shadow readings for the distant object, and there's the final image. Okay, what about metering for flash portraits? So if you've seen my footage before, you know I'm a model photographer normally. We're not making videos, and I use both LED lights and flash. So for this particular trip, I was using flash, the Godox AD100s. I did a workshop with Thomas, and so I wanted to show how I was using flash. I've got off-camera flash, two AD100s, one in front of the model, one behind. There you can see the key light, as I'll call it, so my main light, which will be in front of the model, and I've got that in a flip-up softbox. I can put a link below to all my stuff. And then I'm using a newer Godox X3 mini trigger, because those triggers are, for me, the best size for the Leica M cameras. There's my second Godox AD100, which would be behind to act as a rim light. So now to meter the flash, I've got to set it to the flash setting, the wireless flash setting, which is the second icon of the three, as you can see there. And then what you need to do is you need to hold the meter in front of the flash and then trigger your flash with your so I'm going to press the trigger with my finger. That allows the Sekonic 308 to then take a reading from the flash that's just fired. So it's slightly different than when you're metering available lights, because obviously flash is instant. And now I need to meter the light behind me, which would be my rim light. Probably help if I turn around and do it. And normally I have the light behind the model slightly brighter, although that's a bit too bright, slightly brighter than what I have in front of the model. So what I'm going to do is reduce the power on my second light. If you're using triggers like the X3, you can have your A light, B light, C light, etc. So this is my B light. I have my A light as the main light, B is the second light, C is the third light, etc. You can either change the power on the light, as you see there. Go take another reading. Just make sure the light is going to be lining up to wherever your model is going to be. Fire the flash. So hopefully it'll be a little bit less power now. So it's gone from 32 to 22. It's still bright because it's very close and it's bare bulb, which is going to give you a brighter output than if you're using a softbox. The other way to change the power is on the top of the X3 trigger or whichever Godox trigger you're using. Normally use the triggers because it saves you walking over to your lights. So I've changed the power on the front one and the back one. This is now f2, which means I can shoot the lens wide open at f2. For digital portraits, I tend to shoot all lenses wide open as much as possible. And then if I'm shooting film, sometimes I'll stop down one stop to get a little bit sharper. And then I try to shoot both cameras at exactly the same settings so that it's easier when it comes to metering lights. Now, a quick bonus tip for anybody using any Leica M cameras without live view. I often shoot my cameras at arm's length, such as above models like this. And so I've realized with the 262, I can use the playback of the previous photo as my equivalent of live view. That way I can shoot arm's length and compose with the screen. Let's say I'm using a 35mm lens. I can't use an EVF anyway because the hot shoe is taken up by the flash trigger. So what is the verdict? These small light meters that go on the top of your camera are very nice, but as some of my students have shown me, and I know from my own experience, sometimes the meter readings can be a little bit hit and miss. It gives you a reading you're like, that makes no sense. So for that reason, I always end up going back to Sekonic because I know Sekonic will work and it's reliable and I know I can get my shots. So for that reason, I would recommend the Sekonic Light Meter. If you see my 4x5 videos, I actually use the bigger Sekonic spot meter. I'll try and find it and drop in some footage. If you want to see me using the Sekonic spot meter, check out my 4x5 videos. To see more on the various cameras and lenses shown on the table, check out my other videos. Thanks for watching and a huge thanks to my amazing patrons.